This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast brought to you by Agriland and AXA Insurance, keeping you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined by Aisling O'Brien and Agriland beef specialist Breifne O'Brien. Well, there's plenty going on out there, including the small matter of the 2024 general election, with the country going to the polls from 7 a.m. tomorrow when polling stations open. Agriland has been providing coverage of the general election campaign every day since it was announced. If you check out the video section on our app and website, you can see our video series in which we followed key candidates on the campaign trail. Also, keep an eye out this evening for our panel discussion with the leaders of the 5 main farming organisations on what this election means for Ireland's farmers. So, Aisling, this is the last day before the election, and when we're back here recording this time next week, we could even have a new government, depending on how things go. So, one last time, can you bring us up to speed on this election campaign?
Charles, I never took you for an eternal optimist. If we have a government by this day next week, I think it could be a miracle, because the opinion polls at the moment are suggesting that this contest is too tight to call. So we'll have to see what the electorate returns after tomorrow's vote. Some commentators saying we might not even have a new government formed on this side of Christmas, depending on the outcome of the vote. Now, as you said, today marks the final day of campaigning in this general election 2024. So candidates around the country are going to be making their final pitches and promises to voters. It's the last time they'll be knocking on your door anyway, hopefully for the next few years. And the posters will come down in due course as well. So around 3.4 million people are eligible to vote around the country, Charles. And before Friday, you should have received a polling card with information about where you need to vote. But don't worry, if you haven't received that polling card, you can check the register online. Check the register.ie is the website, just to make sure that you're on the register to vote. And also you can take that polling card if you have received it to your nearest polling station, but you don't have to do so. It's not required. Now, as you said, polling stations open from 7 o'clock on Friday morning until 10 o'clock on Friday night. You can vote whenever you want during that period of time, as long as it's inside those hours. Now, when you arrive at the polling station, you're going to be asked to say your name and address, and you could be asked for identification as well. So make sure you bring along something like a passport, a driver's license, public services card, workplace ID, student card, or travel document in order to make sure that you can go ahead and vote. Now, Charles, you did a very interesting piece for Agriland ahead of the last elections that weren't so long ago, the local and Europeans, about our system of voting in elections, which of course is proportional representation. So if you want to learn in depth about how that system works, please do check out Charles's very interesting article on Agriland. So that essentially means that each voter has a single transferable vote, and using this system, voters can vote for as many or as few candidates as they want in order of their preference. So if you haven't voted before, or if you're new to voting, or maybe just a little bit of a refresher, so you mark number 1 in the box beside your first choice candidate, and then if you wish, 2 in the box beside your second choice, 3, and so on and so forth. And the question is always asked around this time, Charles, as well: how far should I go down the ballot paper with my vote? That is entirely up to you. You can vote for one candidate if you choose, or if, for instance, you have 14 candidates in your area, in your constituency, you can go from 1 to 14 if you choose. It's completely up to you. Now, the counting will start on Saturday morning. Some results are expected to be announced by Saturday evening in places around the country. But there will be some very interesting exit polls. I know a lot of farmers out there are political animals, Charles, and they will be watching this election very, very carefully. So the exit poll will come out once the ballot boxes close, and the voting closes at 10 o'clock tomorrow night. So that might give us some indication of what the electorate are going to return to us for the next government. And as you said, Charles, over the last few weeks here on Agriland, since this campaign got into full swing, even though some might argue that the campaign has been going on for months and months, we have been hearing from some of the key politicians when it comes to maybe farming issues. And as you said, we will be hearing from farm organisation leaders as well tonight on Agriland. But I suppose tomorrow, the only voice that matters is the people, and they are going to decide who will be the next government. And Agriland has been out and about hearing from farmers across the country, and here is some of what they had to say ahead of polling day.
A lot of my age that I went to college with, they've all immigrated out to Australia or New Zealand because they find there's nothing here for them. And it's seen around the marts, both in the cattle and in the sheep. There's not a massive amount of young farmers around. There's older farmers getting out of sheep because they've no one to take over. Like with the sucklers, there wasn't enough of sucklers incentives for young farmers to take over. So a lot of farms are leased, or there's no help now.
I'm a farmer since I was knee high.
Okay, and do you still enjoy it, or is it a difficult task for you?
Some days it's difficult and more days it's okay, you enjoy it.
Yeah, and do you believe that politicians can deliver for rural communities
they
like
can
this?
do a certain X amount, they can, but when they get elected they have no heed on the farmer. Once they get in and get their own seat, they don't give a damn about the farmer.
Where people have to move into a town, they can't have their parents minding their grandkids because they can't build a house beside them at home on the home farm. It's absolutely ridiculous, and this is where the government has to come in on this as well, because farmers and food, these are the challenges, and food on the table is coming from the farming community, and that's what's keeping rural Ireland alive.
Moving on now, and a series of key meetings among members of Kerry Co-op have now begun for the purpose of bringing members up to speed on the proposal for the Co-op to buy Kerry Dairy Ireland, the milk processing division of Kerry Group. Aisling, we covered the details of this deal last week, but can you talk to us about the significance of these meetings?
Yes, Charles, as you said earlier this month, it was confirmed that Kerry Group and Kerry Co-op have reached an agreement to sell Kerry Dairy Ireland, which is Kerry Group's dairy division, to the Co-op for a total expected price of €500 million. Now, just a reminder, this proposal outlines that the Co-op will initially acquire a 70% interest in Kerry Dairy Ireland for €350 million, with Kerry Group retaining a 30% interest. The Co-op will then have a call option to acquire the final 30% stake at any time up until mid-2030. And if that call option is not exercised, Kerry Group will then be able to force the Co-op to acquire the final 30% stake by 2035. Now, both parties are hoping to have the first phase of this deal completed by the end of next January, but it will have to firstly be approved by shareholders in Kerry Group and Kerry Co-op. And a special general meeting of the Co-op will take place at midday on Monday, December 16th at the Gleneagle INEC Arena in Killarney in Kerry. And the proposed transaction will only proceed if it is approved by the required majority, which is 66% of the Co-op's A and B shareholders who are present at that meeting. Just a reminder, there is no postal vote here. You have to go along on the day if you want to vote in this. So in total, Kerry Co-op is hosting 14 information meetings on this proposed deal. We have a list of all of those meetings on our website and app, so you can check those out. And they finish up in Adare on December 5th, and they're open to all shareholders, A, Bs and Cs. Obviously, the Cs will not have a vote in this. Of course, there are just under 12,000 shareholders in the Co-op, and around 120 of those, and some milk suppliers as well, were present for the first meeting at the Dingle Skellig Hotel in West Kerry on Monday of this week, where the Co-op outlined its business case for this milestone deal. And the Co-op said as well, there was some criticism at that meeting, Charles, about a lack of detailed information on this. The Co-op has produced kind of a shorter document on its website, but some people unhappy with that level of detail. And the Co-op said that a detailed 30-page document on the proposal will be sent to A and B shareholders next week, and it'll also be available on its website. Now, we did hear as well that the co-op will be running bus services to that SGM in Killarney as well to facilitate as many shareholders as possible getting to that vote, and details of those bus services will be communicated to shareholders in due course. So Jim Wolfe, the strategic advisor to the board of Kerry Co-op, told the meeting that the proposal would unlock the value of shares in a tax-neutral manner, move control of milk processing back to the co-op and resolve the long-running leading milk price dispute. Now, he said that Kerry Dairy Ireland has a forecasted revenue of €1.3 billion for this year. He said it was a sustainable business that's well run and efficient. And he said that this deal has undergone around 3 months of detailed diligence from a range of different experts, tax and legal, environmental experts, and including PwC and EY. And Simon McAllister from EY explained to the meeting that this €500 million price tag, this valuation, is based on a 4-year average of EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization, of €71 million. And he said that the overall sale price cannot increase, but it could reduce if the business underperforms. And he said that the deal would allow Kerry Co-op to have full control of milk price and capital investment decisions. Now, the co-op holds over 19 million shares in Kerry Group, which are worth about €1.7 million. And as part of this proposal, there will be a share exchange programme. And through that programme, 85% of those shares would be spun out to the Kerry Co-op members, which are valued at €1.4 billion. The remaining 15%, which are worth around €250 million, would be used by the co-op towards the cost of acquiring the initial 70% stake in Kerry Dairy Ireland. Now, the balance, we were told, will be made up of €56 million in loans from banks, 2 Irish and 2 international, and a loan of around €43 million from Kerry Group. Now, the final 30%, which is valued at around €150 million, will be financed through a 1 cent a litre milk supplier contribution over 6 years, retained earnings of €20 million and €80 million of refinanced third-party debt. Now, we heard that the milk supplier contribution will be collected from April to October, and the board will have the ability to pause that payment in certain circumstances, and the payment will become convertible loan stock, meaning that suppliers would have the option to convert it into co-op shares. And in the case where a supplier leaves or retires, they would receive their full contribution back. Now, the meeting heard from Jamie Olden from the legal firm RDJ LLP, who strongly recommended the proposed €50 million fund from Kerry Group to resolve the ongoing arbitration dispute over the leading milk price. And James Tagney, the co-op chair, said, he did acknowledge that there was disappointment that this was being linked to the overall deal being accepted, but he said that the offer was the best possible outcome for milk suppliers. Now, we heard from shareholders at the meeting as well. One shareholder wanted a written guarantee from Revenue confirming that there would be no tax implications arising from this share exchange programme. And now Ronan McNicholas from PwC said that it's not Revenue policy to provide such written guarantees, but he said that the transaction has been explained in full detail to Revenue in advance. And he said that Revenue has issued a letter outlining that they are happy with the transaction. Now, another shareholder claimed that Scope 3 emissions, that's essentially what we were told, everything produced by the cow, Charles, could cost Kerry Dairy Ireland around €170 million up to 2030. Now, Jim Wolfe, in response, said that Scope 1 and 2 emissions are within the remit of Kerry Dairy Ireland, while 95% of the responsibility for Scope 3 emissions rests within the farm gate, and it's not a cost factor for the business. And he said that the business plan includes a range of initiatives to reduce Scope 1 and 2 emissions by 48% by 2029 when compared to 2017 levels. And he said, pointing to Scope 3 emissions, that would be, I suppose, the uptake of the Kerry Group Evolve programme, the sustainability programme, and that farmers taking up the initiatives within that programme would help to reduce the Scope 3 emissions as well. Now, one member who was in favour of the deal pointed to geography, which I suppose is interesting in a place like the Dingle Peninsula, Charles. He said some milk suppliers would be worried that if Kerry Dairy Ireland was sold to another entity or another third party, they'd be worried about milk collection, given that they are geographically off the beaten path. And another member pointed to tax implications. He said he was going to be voting against the deal because of the loss of the existing share redemption scheme, which he said was beneficial to his family circumstances. And the loss of the redemption scheme has been a sticking point for some members out there, because they do point that for some older shareholders, it is a very positive thing in terms of tax. Now, we were told that PwC is holding briefings with local tax advisors, and everybody is being urged to, I suppose, source their own individual tax advice on this, because, of course, as we said, everybody's circumstances are different as well. And in response to a question on milk supply contracts, James Tagney said that a new contract would be presented to suppliers around March or April of 2025. Of course, the Kerry Group milk contract runs until April 26 in or around Charles. So that will still remain in place as well. And the meeting heard that the aim of the board is to pay a very, very competitive milk price as well. So it is interesting, Charles, a lot of questions still to be answered out there as well. We had another meeting held by the IFA in Tralee in advance of those information meetings as well. We have a full report on that and some of the issues that were raised, particularly, I suppose, about the treatment of B and C shareholders. But Charles, I suppose the advice to Kerry Co-op members at the moment is to get out to at least one of those meetings and to ask your questions to make sure that you can make an informed decision ahead of that SGM. And, it is very important because everybody's circumstances are very different, whether you're a milk supplier without any shares or you are a shareholder. If you, there's so many different permutations here. And that was something that was mentioned at the meeting as well. So a lot of questions still to be answered between now and then, but more details we're being told coming out from the co-op in this detailed document next week.
Thanks for bringing us up to speed on that, Aisling. Now, staying with the dairy industry, but moving on to a different processor, Dairygold has completed its milk supplier census for the period 2025 to 2030. Aisling, what are the key findings of this census?
Yeah, this is a very interesting census because I suppose it comes in a very different policy landscape when compared to the last census in 2020. I mean, we're looking at obviously the emissions target for the agriculture sector by the end of this decade. And I suppose concerns about the future of Ireland's nitrates derogation as well, all feeding into the findings of this census as well. And we were told that 94% of Dairygold's milk suppliers did respond. So it is a very comprehensive census, and it has confirmed that the nationwide trend of milk production growth is flattening. Dairygold milk suppliers forecasting that the annual milk production volumes for the next 6 years are stabilising at 1.38 billion litres. Now, when factoring in 1% annual increase in output per cow, the projected supply would be 1.46 billion litres. And that is in line with the average Dairygold milk production volume over the last 3 years. Now, the combination of milk suppliers indicating plans to cease dairy farming or reduce cow numbers is partially offset, we were told, by other respondents' plans to actually increase cow numbers. And the forecast doesn't take account of the impact of any new entrants and the impact they would have on milk production over this period as well. Now, uncertainty around environmental issues came in at 52%. As a factor impacting milk production. That was followed by land availability and stocking rate at 37%. And it was noted by suppliers that the loss of the nitrates derogation was a key risk to milk supply, and reducing cow numbers, decreasing non-dairy livestock and increasing land areas were the top 3 actions that milk suppliers said that they would take should the derogation no longer be available to them. Now, despite these actions, of course, the loss of the derogation would still have a significant impact on both milk suppliers and the Dairygold business, we were told. Now, among the other concerns out there and maybe factors influencing suppliers' decisions to reduce or to cease milk production were age and workload. And most of those suppliers indicated that they were transitioning to another farming enterprise post-dairying. Now, some suppliers also pointed to succession, financial awareness, awareness and access to employees as being key challenges facing them over the coming 6 years. And only 15% of those surveyed have a clear succession plan in place as well. Now, there is some positives here, Charles, as well. Just over half, 51% of the respondents said they were positive or very positive about the future of milk production on their farm. And more than 4 in 5 reported that they will either maintain or increase their output over the next 5 years. And when it comes to planned investments, farm infrastructure is the most common investment that is planned over the next 6 years for Dairygold milk suppliers, with slurry or maybe soiled water storage, as well as energy saving measures high on the list of priorities there as well. So very interesting findings, Charles, maybe reflecting the landscape that dairy farmers are facing at the moment in Ireland.
Thanks, Aisling. And just while we're on the subject of milk processing, there was important news on that front this week concerning Lakeland Dairies. The business has secured planning permission for the installation of an additional milk intake bay at its plant in Killashandra, County Cavan. The development will see an increase in milk intake at the plant of 36 million gallons of milk per year, or an increase of 693,000 gallons per week. But returning to politics now, and in the last week we saw US President-elect Donald Trump announce his pick to lead the US Department of Agriculture, opting for Brooke Rollins, a Texas native from a family farming background and a longtime loyalist to the incoming president. Closer to home, this week also saw the approval of a brand new European Commission, including the new Commissioner for Agriculture, Christoph Hansen. However, this is happening against the backdrop of a continued concern over Europe's direction of travel on the EU-Mercosur trade agreement. Aisling, can you take us up to speed on all this?
Yeah, so as you said, the new European Commission formally approved in full by the European Parliament. And yeah, Christoph Hansen is going to have quite the brief, because he is going to be overseeing the next common agricultural policy after 2027, Charles. So the Luxembourg native will have a job of work, to use that political cliche, facing him now over the coming years. But yeah, as you said, not very straightforward in terms of how Irish MEPs voted on this new European Commission, because it is all very much coloured, as you said, by the controversial EU-Mercosur trade deal. So Irish MEPs from Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil voted to approve the new Commission, while MEPs associated with the Parliament's left and socialist groupings, including the 2 Sinn Féin MEPs and independent Luke Ming Flanagan, voted against the new Commission. So notably, 2 MEPs who are part of the same group as the Fianna Fáil MEPs, that is the Renew Europe group, abstained from the vote, and they cited the EU-Mercosur trade agreement as the reason for their abstention, and they were independent MEP Michael McNamara and Independent Ireland's Kieran Mullooly. Now, Michael McNamara, and we've spoken about this previously on the podcast, Charles, he has pointed to concerns about the Mercosur trade deal being split out, so that trade-related aspects wouldn't require unanimous approval from member states, with member states only having a say on less pressing aspects of the deal. And McNamara said the question is whether the deal will be split to see the trade aspect fall solely under the EU's jurisdiction in order to bypass member states' democratically elected parliaments. And he said that he has written to Ursula von der Leyen looking for clarity on this as well, and that is the reason why he abstained on it. And he said that splitting the deal in this way could see the next Dáil and other member states' parliaments deprived of the power to determine whether this deal would come into effect in their respective states as well. Now, Kieran Mullooly also pointed to concerns about the EU-Mercosur trade agreement as well. He said he has serious concerns about the lack of a clear commitment and transparency from both the incoming Commission and from Taoiseach Simon Harris as well about the agreement as well. And he said despite repeated efforts to seek assurance on this critical issue, he said that no satisfactory responses, in his opinion, had been provided. So in response to the move by Kieran Mullooly to abstain, Sinn Féin spokesperson for Agriculture and Rural Development, Martin Kenny, criticised that move. He said he was absolutely astounded by that decision. He said that Sinn Féin MEPs voted against the ratification of the pro-Mercosur Commission. He said any representative who claims to be a voice for farmers would oppose Mercosur at every hand's turn. Yet when Independent Ireland had their chance today, they decided to abstain, he said. And he also said that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael would not put on the record any complete opposition to Mercosur, but the leaders of both parties have said that they are opposed to this deal in its current form, Charles. So a lot to go yet with Mercosur. And I suppose looking just maybe over to France very briefly, a bit of a war of words has erupted between the French supermarket chain Carrefour and Brazilian farmers as well, because the company's CEO announced within the past week that the supermarket chain was committed to not selling any meat from Mercosur countries. Of course, this led to a huge backlash from Brazil in particular. They were very, very angry. Of course, French farmers have been very much against the Mercosur deal, and perhaps the supermarket CEO reflecting that mood that's out there amongst French farmers. But it seems like the Carrefour CEO has had to kind of back down from that position now. The company has actually released a statement saying that they regret that their communication has been perceived as a questioning of our partnership with Brazilian agriculture or as criticism of it. And they said they will continue to support and promote Brazilian agricultural supply chains as they have done for nearly 50 years. So it shows that there's a little bit of politics and agribusiness at play as well out there in France at the moment. But it seems that supermarket will continue to supply Brazilian beef, despite what the CEO had said earlier in the week, Charles.
Now, moving back closer to home, and the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation has launched a nitrates calculator to help farmers stay within organic nitrogen limits. Aisling, can you explain how this will work?
Yes, Charles. So earlier this year, the Department of Agriculture proposed organic animal nitrogen excretion changes, which were outlined to the Agriculture Water Quality Working Group in December of last year. So in response to all of those changes, the ICBF has developed this new calculator, and it's based on the latest Teagasc research, and that proposes a different, I suppose, excretion rates for animals from calves up to dairy cows in lactation. So you can check out all of those different proposals on our website and our app as well. So essentially, this new calculator will allow farmers to input their projected stock numbers on the farm from now until the end of the year, which will enable an end of year organic nitrogen and phosphorus total for their farm holding. And it will also help project what a farmer's overall organic nitrogen per hectare rate may be at by the end of the year as well. So very, very helpful, Charles. We've full details of this on our website and our app, because I know a lot of dairy farmers out there very interested, as we were hearing earlier on from the Dairygold census as well, on any changes to nitrates. So this ICBF calculator will hopefully help them make sense of all of that as well.
Well, just before we finish up, we're going to bring in Agriland's beef specialist, Breifne O'Brien. Breifne, you're at the weanling heifer sale of the 2024 Carrick Winter Fair, and you witnessed something quite special. Tell us what happened.
That's right, Charles. The weaning heifer sale of the 2024 Carrick Winter Fair took place on Monday, November 25th at the showgrounds Carrick and Shannon in County Roscommon. The sale kicked off at 10 a.m. and just before 5 p.m, Lot 407, which was a Limousin Cross heifer owned by Derek Ford from Corrandulla, County Galway, entered the ring, and after a rapid round of bidding, the gavel fell on this lot for a whopping €30,000. So this €30,000 heifer is sired by Limousin bull Millbrook D'Artangan, MBP is the AI code, and won first in the Limousin Cross heifer class under 350 kg in the pre-sales show, which took place on Sunday, November 24th. The heifer also won first in the Dovea genetic sired €2,000 calf bonanza. So there's a number of other exceptional prices at the event, and coverage from the sale and pre-sale show is available on the Agriland app. It was approaching midnight when the final heifer went through the ring, and there were approximately 400 heifers on show at the event. So the €30,000 price tag for the heifer is a new record for the Carrick Winter Fair, beating last year's top price, which was the previous record holder of €21,500. That was paid for a Belgian Blue Cross heifer, which was sold by John Kennedy from Adara, County Donegal. So now we have the Corrandulla breeder Derek Ford's heifer now is the record holder.
And just while we have you, Breifne, can you bring us up to speed generally on where the beef trade is at present?
So the beef trade is keeping fairly positive at the moment, and it's been a fairly unusual autumn in the beef trade in that prices have apparently continued to rise until now anyways. for cattle, contrary to the general trend where prices often tend to drop off at this time of the year or bottom out before beginning to lift again. So this week's factory quotes for beef cattle sees the higher price rates move up by 5 cents a kilo again. So it's another week of continued beef price positivity. So there's strong demand coming there from key markets, and it's driving the current trade increases at a time when concerns are mounting regarding supplies of prime cattle for the coming 4 to 5 months. And we have more on this on the Agriland app there, anyone wants to read up about it. So Board B expect that the prime cattle kill will fall by 46,000 head in 2025, and the cow kill numbers are going to drop by approximately 10,000 head also, according to the Board B forecast, with the overall kill for the year expected to be around the 1.69 million head mark, or 4% below the forecasted 2024 beef kill. So at the moment, heifers have been quoted at approximately 535 to 540 per kilo on the grid this week. Steers are being quoted at 530 to 535 in general again this week. Cows have been quoted at prices ranging from 470 to 530 for flesh cows with carcass weights above 270 kilos. Under 24-month bulls have been quoted at 560 for U grades, with approximately 550 a kilo being quoted there for OR grades again this week. Under 16-month bulls are generally being quoted at approximately 535 per kilo on the grid this week.
Thanks for that, Breifne. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars and share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Aisling, Breifne and myself, make sure you get out and vote, and regardless of what happens in the election, enjoy the weekend.
This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance Stack is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.